and the Black multicultural diaspora. So today we will be joined by Asha Curran, who is the CEO of GivingTuesday, and Catherine Mwendwa, who is the East Africa Hub Director of GivingTuesday. And we are here to discuss how leaders in our community can leverage the GivingTuesday movement to make a difference in their own ventures. So we're going to go ahead and get right to it so we don't waste much time. And so welcome, Asha and Catherine. Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, yes, it's a pleasure. Thanks for honoring our invitation, to join this conversation and sort of just inform people in our community so they could be more empowered about this amazing movement that you have going on. I'm also going to be joined by Katie, who is our co-anchor today. So I'm going to pass it on to Katie to introduce herself and get started.
Thank you, Adedayo, for that amazing intro, and welcome Asha and Catherine. So excited for today, and I can't wait for everyone to hear about the amazing stuff GivingTuesday does and how they can kind of learn how to participate. So I guess to get started, could you tell us just a bit about GivingTuesday and how it came about?
Sure, I'll take that one first. GivingTuesday was created in 2012 at the 92nd Street Y. So Adedayo, perhaps like the last time we saw each other at the Social Good Summit, it might have been right around the time that GivingTuesday was just being conceived of. So this is actually the 11th year of GivingTuesday. Oh, and the idea was just very simple, an idea to do good, an idea to have a day to give back following the days of consuming here in the US, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We don't really talk about that comparison anymore because GivingTuesday is now so global. Over the past 11 years, the movement has grown into really a year-round global generosity movement that comprises multiple sectors, families, young people, 85 countries, hundreds and hundreds of local communities, and really interestingly, an increasing amount of collaborative campaigns and coalition campaigns. So people coming together to work together, not necessarily on behalf of their organization, but on behalf of whatever they commonly believe in or whatever they find affinity with, which is really lovely to see. So it has changed a great deal in its 11 years, but really at the heart of it, it is the same idea. It's about celebrating the innate generosity of every human being, the ability of every person to make a positive impact on their community, on their world, the importance of every individual as a giver.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're saying the concept of GivingTuesday, of generosity, what is the significance based on some of the data you are seeing? And one thing I found so interesting is like you are innovating the idea of generosity in a way.
Yeah, I'll talk about that from a general perspective, and then Catherine, maybe you can talk about it from your specific perspective. So we've invested a lot more of our own resources and time in our data commons in recent years for exactly the reason that you're saying, which is what has been measured in terms of generosity commonly, traditionally, is really money, monetary giving to organized, incorporated nonprofit organizations. And that measurement is really important. It's really important to know how civil society is doing and how organizations are being supported. But generosity, from our perspective, is a value that manifests in almost countless ways. And giving money is only one of those ways. Everything else has sort of been shoved aside into this category that is called informal, or some other, what I consider to be sort of demeaning phrase that implies that it's not important unless it's money. And in fact, quite the opposite is true. Generosity is really abundant, and the ways that it plays out are crucial, life-saving ways that define the health and thriving of the places that we live and work and be with each other. Catherine, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I'd love to, and thanks for that overview, Asha. every time you speak, it just reminds me of my context and the African context. A lot of generosity happens. It's a way of life. It's a form of solidarity. It's a way people connect. So it comes so naturally that sometimes we forget the value that generosity has in tying us as communities, but most importantly, the value that generosity has in even just sustaining livelihoods. A typical example I will give is just how we have survived the pandemic at the continent, in the continent, really. A lot of support from the diaspora communities, a lot of support within our own peers and our own neighborhoods and our own families. And that is and has been quite invaluable. And the value of Giving Tuesday and the movements we are connecting with across the continent is to appreciate this and share stories that inspire people to value, celebrate, but most importantly, to direct even some of this generosity acts to things that are more sustainable. And by this, I mean, we are a young continent, right? So voice is quite critical. The moment we ignore voice as a philanthropic asset, we are letting a lot go undocumented and a lot go unleveraged, right? So being able to look through the different things and the different philanthropic assets that we have and using that broad diversity lens only doubles and triples the resources that we have at the continental level. Yeah.
Wow.
So in 2021, 2.7 billion was donated just in one day in the United States. So what makes global giving such a successful day and movement?
Giving Tuesday, yeah, and in 2022, that number was 3.1 billion. So it is amazing how those dollars have grown. I think what makes it such a successful day from a global perspective is that it is a day that people who give feel like they're giving in community with one another. I don't think it's really that much more complicated than that. People want to feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves. We all want to feel like that. We especially want to feel like that when we're joining a movement, any movement. Part of the power of a movement is that you can feel that you are one voice among many voices. And so people are inspired to give on Giving Tuesday because they see that the conversation about generosity is thriving all around them. And frankly, giving is a really, there's a huge payoff to giving. It feels really good. It has very material benefits for the giver as well as the receiver. And so that makes it generative, because if we do something that we like, we want to do it again. So that's why we see those numbers growing and swelling on Giving Tuesday. And we also see that donor acquisition is very high on that day, meaning that people who haven't given before are sometimes giving for the first time, which I think is really powerful. And then they're very likely to give again. But really, I think it is that element of connectivity that makes it so powerful. We are all generous. We're born generous, and really there's a strong human need to be generous. It connects us to other people, and so Giving Tuesday provides that platform for us to reach out, do something good, feel great about it, share it, and then hopefully do something else. Catherine,
So,
what would you add to why it works so well where you are?
And Catherine, if you don't mind adding the idea of radical generosity, because everything you're saying, it's like people love to give. People, if you put the situation around, people would give. I think that's what you're creating with the movement, is like creating the environment for people to think about giving, even though it's not like a thing they would just assimilate to without being told or also. So how does that fall into radical generosity? Was it you guys that created the term? Because I'd never heard of it until until I started learning more about Giving Tuesday, that word, radical generosity. So what can you say about that in addition to what Asha has just shared?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I'll quickly go back to what Asha spoke about, and definitely we respond to what we mean by the term radical generosity. I think one of the things that we have seen Giving Tuesday inspire, especially at the continental level, is collaboration, right? So one of the this inspiration has meant that communities building on the generosity movement, and that's Giving Tuesday, have come together to identify ways that they can do things differently. And an example of such a collaboration in community are organizations that are keen to inspire alumni giving. So they run campaigns separately to mobilize their own alumni community, but view Giving Tuesday as a moment that connects different communities around the world, communities that relate and identify with the values of alumni giving, and use that moment to either celebrate, share stories of how alumni and their community friends and families are giving back, with the essence of one, helping others and inspiring others give, but secondly, creating and co-creating tools and resources that can help build conversations around giving for specific communities. So I just wanted to resound that, as Asha has mentioned. And in terms of radical generosity, yes, it's just the appreciation that there is so much resources around us. There's so many ways we can give, not just finances, not just volunteering, not just the voice, but even simple acts of giving. And this could be as simple as and as valuable as giving time to someone who's going through a hard time, right? It can be as simple as that. And most importantly, ensuring that the voice that we are creating or about Giving Tuesday is as inclusive as possible, efforts feel appreciated, and we are able to leverage on these cultures together.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
So when it comes to actually participating in Giving Tuesday, what are the ways in which Black-owned businesses, small businesses, and nonprofits can kind of participate and give, especially if they don't have much to give from a money standpoint?
I think I can jump on that, Asha.
Yeah.
Yes. I think a lot happens when even those who don't have much collaborate to engage on Giving Tuesday. They are able to leverage each other's resources to one, communicate and mobilize communities around them. Simple ways that businesses and nonprofits can give is, for example, just helping nurture talent, right? Providing apprenticeship and nurturing youth leaders within their spectrum or within their environment. The other thing that is a key trend is supporting through mentorship, right? Mentoring peer business leaders, or also mentoring young leaders across the continent has become a key trend and opportunity where the diaspora and other communities can leverage and support the continent directly.
Yeah, so to piggyback off what you just said, because I think it's also important that people understand that is there, how do I put it? Okay, so is there a way that you guys invest particularly in groups or organizations who want to participate in the movement, so to say? Like, they know about Giving Tuesday, but it's almost like, okay, how can I, as an organization, as a small business, as part of the African diaspora, a leader within the African diaspora, for instance, how can I be a part of it? And how do you empower, support, and also invest in them?
I'll answer that just from a very general perspective and then hand it over to you again, Catherine, especially with regard to the African diaspora question, which I think you're best positioned to answer. One interesting thing about the way that Giving Tuesday functions as a model is that it also has become a sort of home or mantle to other movements. So within Giving Tuesday, there are campaigns like Latinx Gives, Give Black, Native Ways, Native Gives. So you see different communities coming together under Giving Tuesday to form coalition campaigns. And so this is what I mean. This is something that we call informally mission over brand. It means that instead of one organization raising money for itself, it becomes about raising money for a whole community. So for example, Give Black is very focused on raising money specifically, not just for one organization, but for Black-led businesses. So there are lots of, and then there's GivingTuesday Military, and the list goes on and on and on. It's really a way for people to use the day and the movement in general as a platform to form these broad coalitions and have a lot of visibility using GivingTuesday as a megaphone.
Yeah, thanks, Asha. And an example, especially at the African continent, and of course, what the Africa Hub and the leaders we work with at the continental level are keen to do, is create spaces for such movements to co-create ideas, to co-create campaigns, but also leverage each other to mobilize supporters across the continent. And the other thing is engage some of the partners to create opportunities and to ease how people can give across the continent. For example, connecting with giving platforms, connecting with networks and other social movements, as Asha has mentioned, to create a collective approach to what they want to support at the continental level. And I'd give an example of a movement called the Africans Rising. So what they're doing is connecting with diaspora communities across the world, but also supporters for various campaigns within the continent. And using that platform, connecting with our leaders across the continent to identify what message do they want to pass across to gain more supporters for various causes. A typical cause that they ran last year was a campaign around water justice across the continent, and beginning by having and setting conversations of what's the need, where is the need, and creating ideas, co-creating ideas on the different ways people can participate, not necessarily finances, but the many ways, small, big ways that each and every person can take part in the movement to ensure that the water justice aspects are a resounding focus for different individuals, nonprofits, businesses, and the rest. So one practical way for the diaspora to engage, especially at the continental level, is also identify nonprofits that resonate with the cause or the things or the change that you want to see in the world. It could be conservation, it could be education. And most of these organizations leverage GivingTuesday to create awareness about what they're doing, but also create awareness on how people can support their movements and different causes. So yeah, definitely that's kind of the support that we offer.
I see that you sort of went ahead of the other question that we sort of had about the African diaspora and how, because the African diaspora has ties to the continent, of course, and generally remits like over 60 billion, to the continent. So it's sort of interesting if you can maybe expand more on that, how the diaspora sort of amplifies the movement, even from your observation and what they can, maybe you can share some insights or examples to this effect, and so that those in the diaspora can also begin to think of, okay, I can participate in this way as part of the diaspora.
Yeah, I think when looking back to GivingTuesday and the movement and the community around it, a big part of what they've valued and championed is celebrating and inspiring giving. So opportunities where the diaspora connect with communities who either share identities or share concerns about specific problems across the continent, come together to not only celebrate those who've done something about it, but also create awareness on the opportunities that for funding or supporting some of these causes. The other thing is GivingTuesday is a year-long campaign. So many activities, so many campaigns, so many engagements happen along the year. So there are other moments of celebration that complement what GivingTuesday stands for. So we have seen country leaders and communities and coalitions also mobilize support and attention during days that are complementary to Giving Tuesday values, like Mandela Day. And these are some of the opportunities to engage the diaspora, because they connect with ideals. They also connect with messaging that's quite resonates with them. The other thing is a lot of contributions from the diaspora have been remittances, right? And that's wonderful, because they go to families and close social networks who might not have access to other social protection assets in their respective countries. So that's valuable. But beyond this, there are opportunities for strengthening civil society by giving voice, as I mentioned, example I gave with the Water Saves Lives campaign and others. Other opportunities for the diaspora to connect, of course, Africa has seen an increased strengthening of our tech ecosystem. So one of the challenges that the diaspora community has identified before has been, we want to give to particular causes, but where do we get relevant information or actionable data or insights on how we can give? So leveraging on such platforms, either networks, but also giving platforms that offer a menu of different things that people can support directly or indirectly, is a channel that the diaspora can use to target directly. And then the other one will be a trend that is increasing, funding of business ideas and innovations across the continent. And during Giving Tuesday and in other moments of celebration across the continent, you see that most ideas are brought up and offer diaspora a point or a catchment for them to reflect and see what they can support in either their countries, in their communities, or networks within their social networks back at home. Yeah.
So before we kind of head over to any questions that our viewers might have, I was just wondering, what are some specific ways that you've seen or that you might want to see in the future that like Black-owned businesses and nonprofits can kind of contribute to the Giving Tuesday movement? Because a lot of organizations might really want to give, but not really know any specific ways. So do you have any ideas that you think people might be able to jump on board with?
Yeah, I think, as mentioned, one of the things that has worked and an aspect that has been valuable in terms of engagement is connecting to coalition movements, either aligned to specific causes. And these are spaces where like-minded people have come together to identify priority areas for support. The other thing is just looking out to what country movements are working on, the networks they are connected to, and connecting to some of those to identify spaces or issues that the diaspora can connect with directly. So just being able to connect with the Giving Tuesday network to see what's happening, but mostly leveraging on coalitions and communities either outside the continent or within the continent that have identified some ways the diaspora can support more efficiently is a key recommendation that I would give.
Yeah, I would really second that, just to say that voices collectively are always more powerful, particularly if you're talking about smaller organizations. But Giving Tuesday really is a platform where, you use it to tell a story. People want to give because they're inspired to, and they're inspired to because they're moved by a particular narrative. So people also want to feel like they're making an impact beyond just giving money. So giving people lots of different ways to engage with a cause or an issue is a really important Giving Tuesday best practice. We see sometimes organizations even fundraising on behalf of each other, or using the day or any day throughout the year with Giving Tuesday to raise awareness for other organizations within the same mission or the same cause. So there's a lot of beautiful stuff happening throughout the year. And always seeing what somebody else has done successfully and replicating it is a great way to get started. It doesn't always mean somebody has to enter the movement and be completely innovative and creative straight out of the box if the ideas aren't coming. I'll put in the chat just an example of one of our coalition campaigns this year that did all of these things. It created a narrative around not just communities as needing, but communities as powerful, right? And communities as able to give and also worthy of support. And I think that's a very Giving Tuesday way of looking at generosity, that we're sort of all in this together, and I might need your help tomorrow and you might need my help the next day. And so there's a real sense of mutuality and solidarity to the language that you'll see around those kind of coalition campaigns. That's very powerful.
Thanks for that, Asha and Catherine. So we're going to, before we take one question, if anyone has a question, just put in the chat. One of our final questions is just to understand, do you have infrastructures or programs that, or fellowships, right, that people can sort of apply to or reach out to engage with if they're interested in the movement and want to connect directly with the organization as a whole?
Indeed, we do. We are basically all about providing infrastructure by its literal definition and also by its more figurative definition for all of the communities and people who engage with Giving Tuesday. So if you're running a community campaign or a coalition of the type that I mentioned, those coalition campaigns are very much part of the family. We support them on an ongoing basis. We connect them with other coalitions for ongoing peer learning. So our networks are very, very strong and interconnected. They're not just a bunch of campaigns that are happening in a vacuum. They're very, very aligned with one another, and that network keeps growing and paying really, really lovely dividends. We do have a fellowship program. It's called the Starling Collective, and it's really meant to support really grassroots change makers who are doing work in the generosity or social justice space. So we have hundreds of starlings around the world who are working on causes just kind of across the map, and really becoming very powerful generosity leaders in their own communities. And we work with them a lot on everything from the very tactical things about sort of change making, social change making, to really more movement dynamics and movement building. And again, just creating a strong peer learning community of mutual support. And then those Starling collectives become really interesting pipelines for other types of Giving Tuesday leadership and non-Giving Tuesday leadership as well. Did I forget anything, Catherine, that we try to provide for people?
I think that, yeah, the other thing I would add, Asha, is the network that the Giving Tuesday movement has created beyond the community, right? So working closely with other networks and connecting in other spaces and just leveraging what we are learning as a community to support other movements and also support communities and coalitions that are part of our movement.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Asha and Catherine. That was really inspiring and a really great conversation. I was wondering if anyone in the audience has any questions. I know we've covered a lot. Just raise your hand or just jump in if you have anything to add.
I guess not. So I guess we don't have any questions.
Okay, so I guess we covered everything. And
everything.
There's more to talk about, if we wanted to, of course. But we're mindful of your time and we truly appreciate it. We try to stay within the 30 minutes time. And so thank you so much, Asha and Catherine. So if you may, just to wrap up, is there any final things you would like to share, or how can people get in touch with you or the organization? Just any last minute things to share.
Yeah, I absolutely recommend that people visit our site, learn a little bit more about Giving Tuesday. Most people know it as a hashtag, a fundraising day, but there's a lot more behind it. And so I really invite you to come and join our movement and visit our site and see all the different ways that there are to become involved, all the different countries that are represented, the different causes and the different coalitions. And beyond that, I would just ask everyone to do something generous today.
And Catherine?
I wouldn't add to what Asha has said. She's covered it all, but I will just encourage people to celebrate those who are giving in their communities.
And thank you so much for having us.
You are very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And, you know, just like what we're doing at TAN TV, we are giving. We have a social impact touch to what we do, because we are really media for the community in the diaspora, you know. And so we ask that you follow us at tantvstudios.com and across social media. And of course, to get in touch with Giving Tuesday, givingtuesday.org. Thank you all for watching. And yes, we'll see you online.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.